I've spent about 100 hours researching solar, so you don't have to, or that's the cheesy intro thing, right? And I'm gonna just basically dump all the critical information that I've learned about going solar here, right? I mean, like, what's really the return here? What's a good price per watt? We're looking at residential, looking at commercial systems. When does it kind of make sense? When does it not make sense? What about like earning money with your solar, right? PPAs, power purchase agreements. Do you know about SERECs where you can literally earn like an extra $1,000 a year? And that's based on current value. It's been more in previous years. As a solar power producer, and of course, there's what if I powered my Bitcoin mining rigs with solar? If I pay off my solar panels and I pay off my mining rig, is this a real life money cheat code? Hey, I'm Vosk. You're on the VoskCoin YouTube channel where I try to learn more and earn more every day. I am personally going solar, but how I'm doing it, why I'm doing it, and the way I'm going about it, to be honest, I think will surprise you. And I think if you've contemplated solar at all, or even not, this video is going to change your mind how you look at this. US residential solar down 20% in 2024. But get this, every installer I talk to is busy. Okay, seriously, every good installer is busy. I've talked to 10. They're all busy, they're all booked out. The nearest one, 2 months. The average one, 3 to 4. Some of them well into next year. But let's take a step back, right? Which solar panels are the best? A lot of people get wrapped up in this. I was confused about it, but basically there's a list they consider tier 1 manufacturers. And what I've noticed from all of the installers in my area, right, so I'm in Virginia, but it's going to be, some of these are nationwide installers that I've spoken with. REC and QCell are the best panels that I see them using. Some of them are using some off-brand stuff. Some of them are using alternatives. Some people will say the panels are made with all the same materials, so it's just fine. Yeah, you could say kind of the same thing about cars too. The bottom line is, if the price is the same, why wouldn't I go with the tier 1 brand over the less popular brand? But trust me, as you do your own research, which of course you should do, you're going to see a lot of the same things regurgitated. Panels are on even playing field right now, as long as they're tier 1. Almost all panels you find residentially installed are going to be good enough. When it comes to solar, right, you have roof mount and you have ground mount, and that's basically it. Along with portable temporary ones, right? But that doesn't really matter for what I'm focused on, right? So, and let me just, illustrate my clear goals. And I think that they'll apply to you more or less, right? So I'm looking for a return on investment, right? I want to generate wealth. I want to preserve wealth. Okay. I want to zero out my electricity bill, right? Because you'd be stupid to not zero out your electricity bill. Let me explain why. So electricity is going to continue getting cheaper in the future unless we have some kind of nuclear power breakthrough, and then that ends up cheaper. But let's take a step back and don't be foolish. When has anything ever gotten cheaper for you in life? Seriously. What, do you get a cheaper Big Mac? No. Gas cheaper? Only right before the polls open up. Imagine that. Yeah, nothing's getting cheaper. Don't be a fool. So electricity will continue to become more expensive. And some of the models say that in about 16 years, your electricity rate is going to double. Okay, so look at whatever you're paying right now per month. Can you afford to double that? Do you want to double that? And all your residential electricity bills are paid with after-tax money. Okay, that's a huge premium. And until you elevate your mindset, you don't realize how you are staying poor by paying all these huge fees, taxes, and basically fines with your after-tax money. Do you understand how insane it is, right, to be taxed the massive sums we are, right? And then you get taxed on things like personal property tax and whatever else, on your taxed money. I could go on, but the point is, when it comes to residential costs, especially not like say commercial where it's your business and maybe you could write it off, I'm trying to get that bill the off of me. So you got roof mount, you got ground mount to accomplish that. Roof mount will be cheaper. For a residential system, I've got a lot of data. You could expect a roof mount system will be 10 to 15 grand cheaper than doing a ground mount. Downside, my opinion is it's on your roof. Some people like the look, some people don't. I personally don't really care for the look on the roof, but I'll explain more later why I'm doing a ground mount. But check this guy out. Good for him. 10 kilowatt system up and running. He is farming the sun. And as a farmer, right, we farm our field out here. We farm Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. We're digital farmers as well as literal farmers, more or less. I don't want to round up too much. I got a little bit of a country twang, right? So I just want to give you a quick snapshot on this, right? So this was 5 years ago in Texas. He got in at $3 a watt installed. So this is a more recent thread. Panels are costing about 30 cents a watt without tariffs, right? Racking and inverters add to that cost. So ultimately, labor and overhead are $2 to $3 a watt. And this will, of course, most people will simply be speaking in residential mindsets. And I'll break down residential for a lot of this video and then compare that to commercial and how significantly cheaper it gets at that scale. What really stands out to me though, right, is I think solar's really attainable and accessible and affordable right now. Interest rates are not great. Obviously a cash scenario is ideal here. You can of course DIY, and I would say if you DIY, you could expect to reduce your cost by 40 to 60% depending on how you go about it. The major takeaway though is that at some point, I think that we are going to eclipse solar getting cheaper, being more accessible, to going the other way. It's going to become more expensive, right? I mean, look at the inflation. The US dollar has lost like half of its buying power in the last 5-10 years due to the hyperinflation. It's crazy, but that's not what they want to tell you on the news. And if there's any kind of crazy breakthroughs in the industry, that could massively increase demand for solar. And what does an increase in demand do with the same supply? Prices going up. Economics 101. Seriously, I was in that class. It was boring. But look at this data. Long range Model Y, right? So you have a Tesla in your garage and you've got this car. The battery in that car is equal to 8 Tesla Powerwalls, right? And there's additional complexities here, sure. Let's say you're paying $15K for each single Powerwall, $90,000. You can straight up just go buy this Model Y for 1/3 less and get a car out of it. The point though, you can't use your Tesla as your backup battery yet. And they kind of have a little bit of an island, a moat scenario with their Tesla Powerwalls and now their Tesla cars. And if you could use your Tesla car and it's a better value, then why would you buy the Powerwall, right? They would love to sell you a Tesla and the Powerwalls. Think about it. They're here to make money. But the point being, right, some kind of breakthrough like this, some competitor shows up and does this, or they just, see the writing on the wall and they do it, whatever reason. Things like that could create a massive surge for this. If you don't know, the average electricity rate in the United States is over 20 cents. And in my opinion, the worst state in the entire country, California, it has one of the highest electricity rates, if not the highest, 30, 40 cents. Typical pricing there. And the removal of net metering programs, which basically means you can produce a bunch of energy during the day, bank whatever you don't use into the grid, and then draw that back out at a 1-for-1 rate, say through the night. It's like a free battery system. It's, in my opinion, incredible for both parties. The last thing I'll say about solar power backup options, right? You can just get a couple batteries like the EcoFlow ones and just have some sort of like basic little, battery system. You can get a very nice, turnkey type solution with like the Tesla Powerwalls. And there's a lot of other things in between. For me, I have a big propane tank because we're out here in the sticks. And I'm just going to install a propane generator because I'm sitting on a bunch of propane fuel and the cost for batteries is just very expensive. I can set up a propane generator and be in for much cheaper and have a much longer runtime and higher output with the scenario that I just, with the propane generator that I just mentioned. So for me, that's not going to be what I'm pursuing. But if you don't have net metering, power backup, and storage options are incredibly interesting. And if you have electric surcharges where it's like really expensive during the day, and if you have peak demand and things like that, batteries can really help work around that and get your costs down, but those are unique scenarios. And that's all I'll say on that for now. On the topic of tax benefits, there's still a 30% federal credit for residential solar installs, which is huge, right? And a lot of people doing residential systems, they may be W-2 employees. So you may be very low on expenses. This is an incredible opportunity to get your taxes down and get a big benefit out of it along the way. There's also the Made in America 10% tax credit for if you have solar panels that are certified for that. And if you have a commercial type install, you could secure that additional tax credit. And that's a pretty new one. That's become popular over the last year. How long will that 30% solar tax credit last? The residential one though? It's going to be phased out in 2035 unless Congress extends it. What's going to happen with net metering long term, right? So net metering, again, it's 1-to-1. And long story short is power companies don't want you net metering because they probably have enough juice, even though you'll see all the drama about, we might have to go to rolling blackouts, this, that, whatever. It depends on your area. It could be a real issue, if you will, or not. But the point is that if you're doing net metering, you have solar, right? So they basically have this electric infrastructure they would love to bankroll on top of your head, but now you're making your own juice and you're using them as their battery grid. Well, guess what? Net metering is not too good for that business. What good is it for me to run this big energy business? I got to do all this stuff, and you make all your own juice and you use me to store your power, and I don't ever get to charge you my high electricity fee. But yeah, the point is, massive monopoly conglomerate doesn't want you to be able to get out of their clutches. So getting into net metering, while it's 1-to-1 sooner than later, seems really appealing. I need to look through all the documentation. I'm not quite in yet personally, but I'm trying to get into a situation where I am grandfathered in. I think the return looks interesting today, but it could be incredibly lucrative long term. But as always, time will tell. Let's talk about solar panel sizing, right? You get these higher wattage panels, it may not simply be a better solution. A lot of the higher wattage panels in this current era, right? You go from like 400 watts to 500, 600, 700 watts. They may just literally be bigger panels. So yes, they are a higher wattage panel, but they're literally just like a third bigger and and produce a third more. That's not a big development. You just took the same thing and made it bigger. So what I see across the board is, in my quotes for residential, everybody's using 400 watt panels or more. The panels I was offered are 400 watts, 420 watts, 430 watts by 3 or 4 of the installers. And then one came out at a bit of an anomaly at 540 watts. Those panels are from companies like REC, Certainty, ZN Shine, QPeak, and Solab. So a lot of those are tier 1 manufacturers. What can you expect to generate though? And what is it really worth, and what does it earn, right? So Alpha Mang off of this solar subreddit thread talked about his best solar day here, and you can see his import, export, and production there. And so this, I'm a nerd. I love seeing data. Data is everything, and numbers rule everything. So here's another chart, kind of in that same vein. We can see 12.5 kilowatt hours of consumption, 33.5 kilowatt hours of production, resulting in that 572 revenue there. And then this is another guy. He made his own chart here, which is what I love to see, that he has Enphase, and that has an app that generates a lot of this data. And so he took the APIs and pulled this stuff out. But like, how cool is this to see lifetime? Yeah, man, 3 megawatt hours of production, how much you return to grid dependence, solar credits, grid charge, bottom line, payback period, 6.2 years. That's incredible. But not everyone's all super hyped about solar, right? There's a lot of articles and mindset where rooftop solar has a fraud problem. If you've lived in a neighborhood, you've had those wankers show up at your door and be like, hey, have you ever thought about solar? Or how about some free solar? Dude, there's no free anything. Just shut up. So the solar consumer is very aware and very jaded, this guy said. put up a website, and he's such a beta that he got yelled at and he took it down. Wrong move, homie. Then this Nova Genesis guy is talking about number of solar positive people with life-affecting negative experiences. Right? To be life-affected negative experience, I would generally just classify you as dumb. You know, you're not smart enough to overcome a negative thing if it's worth it otherwise. Not everything goes great. Welcome to living, dude. But yeah, a lot of people get wrapped up in like, oh, they had a bad experience, or my buddy had a bad experience, whatever. You know, move on, dude. Or you get too wrapped up in like the environmental aspect, and it's like, look, it's real simple for me. This is a financial move. Like, yeah, it's great to produce energy, and like that makes me feel good about it, I guess, or just not guilty about using every watt I can possibly find. Sure, because I made this, so shut up. I made this. I'm gonna do whatever I want with it, and you can go make whatever you want and do whatever you want with that. I know that doesn't align with like the woke mind virus of this era, but I'll leave that another day, I guess, whatever. So here's the point, right? You know, how soon can I make my money back? Price per watt, things like that. So I'm doing a ground mount array because my roof orientation, bottom line, doesn't work. I even had Tesla out here, which they're famous for having some of the most affordable rooftop installations, and it just didn't work. Doesn't work. Bad design, given where the sun rises and falls, and then the dormers and peaks we have on our roof. So I'm doing ground mount, and there's pretty much one place where we want the ground mount. It's 2 to 250 foot trench. Then you have to build the actual infrastructure that the panels sit on. And the bottom line is people are adding 10 to 15 grand to these solar quotes because of that. And that sucks. So, you know, what do the numbers really come in for me here? My target price with the ground mount was $3 PPW, price per watt. I've gotten some pretty good quotes. I think I'd be more towards like $2.50 price per watt if I was doing this on my roof. But again, I'm not. So I am waiting on a reply for kind of like, hey, like here's like my final offer type thing. But it's pretty much going to bring my price per watt with one installer, you know, they're local, got great reviews, all that kind of stuff, to about $3.10 per watt. With those numbers, it more or less gives me like a 10-year ROI. We'll see kind of how all that plays out. I think if I mine some coin, and I have excess built into my solar so that I can heat my garage with a Bitcoin miner through the winter, right? So I'm going to be generating excess electricity, which means that I will run my Bitcoin miner, and I already have it, so it's not like I even have to account for getting it. But, you know, if you do need to get one, depending on which one you want to get, be like $1,000 to several grand. But I have it, gonna run it for free, and bank all the coin. I'm gonna hodl the coin until we hopefully get a parabolic bull run, and then look at cashing it out, and you know, run that number directly against my solar investment. So you know, realistically, you know, all in, I'm gonna be spending around $70,000 for my system, and I should be producing about 30,000 kilowatt hours a year. And the array sizing, right, is like 21,500 watts, and that's DC, you know, before the AC inverter rating there. And I haven't finalized anything. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below about my game plan, but I've spent a lot of time. I've got a lot of quotes, right, and the numbers I just gave you are the best in class that I have for this. So that's with about 10 different companies. And if you know me, I love DIYing things, but the bottom line is, I'm not going to DIY this project. I will look at DIYing or being a lot more involved with a commercial solar level deployment in the future. But for this project, it's just I don't have the time. I want to get it rolling. I'm comfortable with the investment versus the return. And, you know, I just have to take a step back and realize that I can't do everything entirely myself all the time. I'm honestly like incredibly busy all day, every day right now. I have been for, you know, a very long time, and I will continue to be. So looking forward beyond that, like, right, looking at commercial and what level, way, shape, or form. I'm going to break this down pretty simply here. On the commercial side, right? So residential, in my opinion, you should be targeting $2.50 per watt to $3. Anything under that seems, in my opinion, really good right now in this current market. Anything above that, like especially like, you know, I'm talking like roof mount, right? you're getting scammed. Like they are just bankrolling thousands and thousands of dollars on top of you and laughing all the way to the bank while you're like, oh, I'm going green. Like, preserve your wealth, bro. What are you doing? All the money you waste just means that you're gonna have to keep working forever because you trade your vitality for life. So the more money you waste, the more you're gonna work, and you trade your life for money. So all the money you waste, you're wasting your life. Don't get mad at me, man. I didn't make this world. So bringing it back to commercial, right? The target price for commercial, right, is $1.50 a watt to $2.50 a watt. Remember that commercial installs, in my opinion, are all going to be ground mount, right? You know, you could do a big install on a roof, you know, in some scenarios, but like that's, you know, mid-size at best. Like I'm talking like, let's fill up a couple acres with solar panels, right? And you got to build all the racking for that, among, you know, all the trenching and the wiring and so forth. So hopefully just that crash course of all this data can help get you in the right spot. This is all real-time, actively sourced data. This is the latest scoop on all of this. So, you know, I use a lot of electricity. I spend, I don't know, about $10,000 a month in electricity. And so you start spending that much in electricity, because I run a mining farm business. You start seriously looking at how the hell can I spend less, right? How do we get to a better electricity rate? Or like, at what year does solar become worth it and pay off? So that's where I'm at. That's where my head's at. I'm taking this step by step. Gonna knock out the residential, and then look at the commercial side. And you know, I think I may deploy a pilot commercial install, you know, solar deployment. I may not be necessarily the most ideal thing to do, but I need to run the numbers and see, like, with financing and the interest rates and everything, at what point, like, is that worth it to me? How far can I realistically finance in cash? How much could I do myself to try to get the price down? So as always, never a dull moment. If you like this content, please subscribe to VoskCoin. I try to put out a video almost every day. I think we do a pretty good job of doing that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the thumbs up if you like the content. And yeah, we're going to close this out with 10 Seconds Tales, my beautiful pup. We're in 10 Seconds Tales in every video because, well, she's been recently promoted to our CSO, our Chief Solar Officer. Hey, you want to buy a mining rig? Do you want a pretty good price on it and pretty fast shipping? Then you may be looking for ASIC Marketplace. Click our link in the video description below to not only support our channel, but support yourself with the coupon code we've got right next to it.